The cooling system fails in another reactor at Japan's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. We're just getting reports now that nuclear fuel rods at Fukushima's reactor number 2 were exposed for a short time. It comes just hours after a hydrogen explosion rocked the building containing Fukushima's number 3 reactor. It's the second hydrogen blast in 3 days at the facility. Government officials insist there's no serious danger from radiation.
Meantime, in this country, members of Congress are calling for a moratorium on the construction of new nuclear power plants. There are 104 nuclear plants up and running now in the U.S. Of those, 23 were built with designs similar to Japan's Fukushima facility. Massachusetts Congressman Ed Markey is one of those appealing for a nuclear timeout. He's on Capitol Hill this morning. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
You wrote this letter and you called for the moratorium on the building of new plants for right now. Is it in response solely to what is happening in Japan?
Well, any plant that is being considered for a seismically vulnerable area in the United States obviously should be reconsidered right now. But in addition, there is a proceeding that is ongoing and nearing finalization at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission that will approve a new design for a nuclear power plant, the Westinghouse AP1000. And that plant, according to one of the senior scientists at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, would shatter like a glass cup under the kind of stress that we're seeing in Japan right now. So we just have to call a timeout and examine whether or not those safety features, which are going to be necessary in the future, are built into new nuclear power plants in our country.
So you are concerned with the design that would be moving forward, how these plants would be built would be not able to withstand an earthquake of the magnitude that we have seen in Japan.
That is correct. For example, the San Onofre nuclear power plant in California is only built to withstand an earthquake at a 7.0 level. What we saw in Japan is 100 times greater in terms of its intensity. So we just have to go back, reevaluate what has happened, look again at the backup systems to make sure that in the event of an earthquake that there would be cooling fluids that could go into the nuclear power plants and that in fact we're also handing out potassium iodide. But believe it or not, I passed a law in 2002 after 9/11 requiring the distribution of potassium iodide within a 20-mile radius around nuclear power plants.
And that stops the body's absorption of radioactive material in the event of an emergency. But I want to ask you a couple quick questions.
But the Bush administration has refused to distribute potassium iodide in the United States. And I believe that the Obama administration now must ensure that any family within a 20-mile radius of a nuclear power plant in the United States has access to the potassium iodide, especially to protect their children.
No, I understand. You're talking about worst-case scenarios here. I want to ask you about a couple of things. One, I mean, even many seismology experts say that the chances, the greatest, I guess, magnitude quake you would see in the area that you're talking about in the San Andreas Fault would be an 8.0, which, again, is much, it's a big earthquake, but nowhere near the scale of what they saw in Japan. But secondly, most of the people who are analyzing what happened in Japan say that after the earthquake, what was supposed to happen at the plants did happen according to plan, that the problem was the tsunami, the resulting tsunami, knocking out power to those backup cooling systems.
Well, these are all man-made devices, and so it's impossible to totally predict all of the different kinds of events which can unfold in these types of circumstances. So in San Francisco in 1906, it was an earthquake, a 7.8. Again, the San Onofre nuclear power plant is only built to withstand a 7.0 out in California. So no one really knows, let's be honest. None of these experts fully can be 100% certain as to what a magnitude of an earthquake that
right.
can hit.
So then
out
what's
on
the
West
solution?
Coast.
Because are we boxing ourselves in? I mean, look, 1979 we had the 3 Mile Island accident. After that, they basically froze licenses for 30 years. There is still a lot of trepidation when it comes to nuclear power. Other countries have managed to harness it differently, like France. But what do we do here? I mean, we've had mining accidents. We saw the oil spill take place in the Gulf. I mean, every way that we get our, electricity and power and our energy to move forward has risks.
There's no question, but that's not true. I mean, the natural gas that we now have more plentiful.
People that talk about the hydro-fracking, and they say it's destroying communities, and they can light their, faucets on fire. So they're complaining as well of that process.
They are complaining, but it is possible to conduct that process in a way which is safe, in the same way that it's possible to build nuclear power plants in a way that's safe. We shouldn't be building them on seismic faults because obviously this entire incident is demonstrating that there's been a seismic shift, I think, in the way in which not only the American people, but the financial marketplace is going to view nuclear power. It's a much more risky investment today than it was on Friday. So I think that we can build nuclear power plants potentially, but only if safety features are built in that mitigate against the kind of catastrophe which we've seen. Same thing is true for natural gas dealing with hydrofracking. But again, it's a message to move towards wind and solar and geothermal and all electric vehicles. There are technologies out there that don't melt down during an earthquake, don't collapse because of a hurricane or a tsunami. They're there, they don't have the same level of risk, and we should, again, invest in the future now as we receive these warnings, knowing that especially the financial marketplace, Wall Street is what did in the nuclear industry after 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl. It is Wall Street again today that's going to believe that nuclear power has become an increasingly risky financial investment.
All right, well, we'll wait and see right now. It provides 20% of the country's electricity. Thank you so much for joining us, Congressman Ed Markey from Massachusetts. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.